Sara, and I would like to persuade you that dance is in fact a sport. Generally, the word dance is placed into the fine arts category as opposed to the sports category, especially throughout history. While dance is indeed a fine art, as we progress into modern times, it is important to recognize the changes in the art and how it is becoming more of a sport. As I stated in my previous speech, I have been a dancer for 14 years and have seen the sport grow into what it is today, as well as how it is compared often to sports such as football. While I assume that many of you may not be dancers, I assume many of you enjoy watching football. As a result, I would like to open your minds to dance as a sport by comparing similarities between the two, as well as showing you how they are useful to each other. Overall, I believe that dance is in fact a sport, just as football is, and should be considered in discussion as such. Just to begin with a little bit of history so as to display both sides of my stance, throughout history, dance was certainly more of a fine art, which is defined on dictionary.com as a visual art considered to have been created primarily for aesthetic purposes and judged for its beauty and meaningfulness. When speaking of dance as a fine art in history, one is usually speaking of a context in which dancers are dressed formally and performing ballet. In a modern context, it is when dancers are performing for purposes such as expression or entertainment of an audience. As dance grew throughout the years, it kept its standing as a fine art, but also began to adopt a competitive side which, along with its physical benefits, enabled it to create a space for itself in the world of sports. To establish a working definition for the word sport as it is used in this speech, I would like to use the one on dictionary.com, which defines it as an athletic activity requiring skill or prowess and often of a competitive nature. This definition leads me to my next point. Are there similarities between dance and other sports such as football? Believe it or not, there are many similarities to be noted between dance and football, for example. One similarity is the risk of injury while participating in either sport. For example, according to an article by Mark Weimer, in the NFL, one of the most common injuries suffered is the concussion. In an article in the Washington Post, 266 concussions were suffered last football season. Similarly, the most common injury seen in dancers is that of the foot or ankle. In a study done by the Center for Sports Medicine, 75 of the 184 subjects studied had suffered one of these injuries throughout the season. 82% of these subjects had suffered at least one injury, if not more. I believe that while the genres of injuries does differ between dance and football, the risk and rate are comparable and equally as prevalent. Another similarity to be noted is the level of competitiveness between different studios and football teams. Some dance studios, such as the famous Abbey Lee Dance Company, perform in at least one competition per week where they will be judged based on several factors which will place them in a ranking with other studios. Equally, football teams generally play in one or two games per week where they must create an equilibrium across all factors of the game so as to ensure a victory. The factors that are combined together to ensure a victory in a football game are essentially what dancers are rated on in a competition which serve to rank them, which are moving in unison, grace, technique, and aggressiveness. Finally, a third quality of dance that is equal to that of football is the workout and practice routines that are necessary to be successful. Just like football players, dancers are required to rehearse every day of the week for multiple hours, repeating choreography over and over again until it is perfected. Also, many dancers maintain strict diets so as to maintain specific weight and size. If these measurements are not kept, a dancer could possibly be removed from the company. So far, my main focus has been on comparing how dance and football are similar. For my final point, I'd like to take a slightly different stance and look at how dance is beneficial to football players. Though it may not be known, many football players take ballet classes so as to reap the benefits during the game. For example, Herschel Walker and Lynn Swann both took ballet during off-season. The reason for this, according to Livestrong.com, is to work muscles that few other workouts will, and increase flexibility, which reduces risk of injury. Another reason that football players take ballet is to improve footwork and agility. For example, Lynn Swann is described on Ballet Alert as able to defy gravity on the field through his ballet training. In conclusion, though dance was certainly seen as more of a fine art throughout history, it has grown to adopt qualities of a competitive sport over time. However, because of the similarities stated above, as well as the facts about how dance is beneficial to players of other sports, I believe that dance should be considered equal in standing when compared to other sports, as opposed to remaining in the historical fine art light.